Good evening, everyone. Good evening from Empty Cloud Monastery. This is Summit Narametika. We're honored tonight to have Ayasadina here to answer any questions that you have about Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Please just type in your questions. And we're also very fortunate tonight to have Anthony, who's been a long-term resident and invaluable in his help, and he's here to read the questions. And we also have Deepa, who's here, who's been invaluable also in all her help to the monastery. And we welcome you all tonight and your questions. Thank you. And we'll go ahead and start.
Okay, I'll try to answer as well as I could. To the best of my ability.
Okay. So
okay, give me the question.
First question. If a person disrobes, are there any financial resources for the person to help with transitioning? Doesn't going forth result in giving away money and possessions? If you leave, what happens?
If you leave, what happens means? If you disrobe.
Yeah, they're asking if, and I will say it depends. Different countries, there's different, the way that you disrobe, what happens when you go out into society might be different. But the question is, what happens when you disrobe? Are there finances? Are there things that take care of you? And maybe you talk about in Sri Lanka what it's like if someone disrobes.
So, thank you for the question. Now, when we get into robes, actually, according to the Buddha's dispensation, it is a mutual arrangement between the lay people and the monastics. So that is how Buddha has arranged it in such a way that it will be meritorious for the lay people when they provide the 4 requisites to the monastics. So that therefore the monastics have no fear of not getting the requisites. But supposing, as you say, a monastic were to disrobe, then what happens? Then of course he would go, the Buddha says, it is the low life. So he would go back to the low life. And of course he would carry on his work in the same way that he would have done earlier.
Thank you. Next question. Why did you become a bhikkhuni?
Actually, to speak, to tell you, I had no idea that I would become a bhikkhuni. I had no preparations for that. But when it was on a Vesak day, Vesak day means the day that Buddha was born and, attained enlightenment and passed away. So we all have celebrations and we have, at the temples, normally we have these programs of a spiritual nature, like taking the 8 precepts and spending the time at the temple and so on. So that day I too was at the temple actually then at that time I was in US at that time. Then I attended the ceremony there, took the precepts, and then Bhante Ji came there, Bhante Gunaratana came and gave a talk, both in Sinhala and English. I was so impressed and I thought that was the time that I can't say why, but I thought I must become a bhikkhuni. That when I heard Bhante Ji's talk, it was not about anything like monastic rules or ordaining or anything like that. It was about Vesak that he talked. But anyway, that was the time I asked for ordination, and Yes, that's how I got it.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to just jump on. Maybe can you talk about where you're ordained at and give a little bit more information about Bhavana Society, maybe?
Yes. Then I hadn't gone to the Bhavana Society. No, I can't remember whether I had gone earlier or not. But it was at the Bhavana Society Seema that I was first ordained by Bhanteji. So I really appreciate it and also value it because it's I admire him as my teacher. And after that, I went to Sri Lanka. Bhanteji gave me the novice ordination as the Samaneri. So then after that, I went back to Sri Lanka, and 2 years later, I got the higher ordination in Sri Lanka. Then in 2007, I came back to US, and then Bhanteji said, I had gone there and I spent the Vassa there. Then Bhanteji said, don't go back, you stay here. So that's how I stayed there for 5 years. And with Bhanteji as my teacher, it was the greatest opportunity in my life to have become a bhikkhuni and to be taught by Bhanteji. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
We have a question from Sud, the gentleman who was here today earlier. He says, "Dear Aya, thank you for giving me the precepts today.
Oh,
Do the 4 types of kama from morning lecture apply to both Kusulakama and Akusalem, both?
I didn't catch the first part of it.
Do the 4 types of kama that we talked about in the morning,
Yeah.
do they apply to Kusala and Akusala?"
But I'm not very familiar with, or I'm a little confused about what the question actually is.
I think he's asking, you mentioned the Abhidhamma explanation of the different kinds of kama.
Yeah.
Does this apply to both wholesome and unwholesome kama, or just to unwholesome kama?
Only.
Yes.
He wants to find out whether I spoke about both.
Yes.
Yes, I did. Because now when Buddha gives the 3, that is Lobha, Dosa, Moha. According to those 3, every karma becomes wholesome or unwholesome. So when it is Lobha is greed, non-greed, non-ill will, and non-delusion, then it becomes kusala, or whatever, unwholesome. It can be wholesome. If it is lobha dosa under those 3, then it becomes unwholesome. That's how the Buddha has said. So when people do things, they always, if they always are mindful, and if they have any idea of Dhamma, then they would keep to the wholesome and not do the unwholesome. But some people do not know what is wholesome and what is unwholesome, what is skillful and what is unskillful. Therefore, they do all kinds of karma. Sometimes even those, people who do unwholesome things do sometimes wholesome things also. So that it's a mixture of both wholesome and unwholesome. In that case, when they pass away from this earth into the next life, the last thought that they have depends, supposing it is a wholesome karma that they have done, then their next birth will be wholesome. If it is an unwholesome thing that comes into their minds, whatever they have done, then it might be a bad birth.
Thank you. I also thank you for coming by today, and I just want to let you know that we did do Purita chant for your grandfather today, and our thoughts are with you.
So we have another question from Kumu. He or she asks, Dear Venerable, there are both family and friends who are born Buddhists, but they don't believe in a sansara or a future birth. Can one be a Buddhist without accepting the notion of sansara, as the ultimate goal of Buddhist teachings is to end the sansara?
This is the person who came today.
No, there's another person.
This is another person. Okay. So, the Buddha, when talking in a certain sutta, right? Now, people were just divided like that in the same way, not knowing whether they to believe in rebirth or whether to believe in karma. Some people don't believe in karma either. So the Buddha gave an answer like this. The Buddha said, when you do good karma, good actions, let us say, put it that way, good actions, it will bring you happiness in this world, because you are doing good things, right? It will bring you good happiness. But if you do bad things in this world, now like killing, stealing, sexual misconduct and lying and taking intoxicants, or all these bad things, if you do, in this world itself, you will be unhappy, right? So, if you do good things, you will be happy. But supposing there is another world, another rebirth, now if you die when you die from this world, if there is another rebirth for you, then because you have done good things, you will get a good rebirth. But supposing there is no rebirth, right? No rebirth, as you think there is no rebirth, but still, if you have done good things, in this world itself, you will be happy. But if there is a rebirth, then in the next world too, you would be happy. But if you do bad things, in this world, you will be unhappy. And if there is a rebirth, you will go into a woeful place. That's how Buddha answered that question.
Yes, and I think part of the question too, thank you. I think part of the question too, I think they're asking, can you call yourself a Buddhist without that right view, without that understanding of karma? Without that understanding
of rebirth.
Yeah. Can I say I'm still a Buddhist
now,
without?
Buddha says, now there are, the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. So, now, if they don't believe in sansara, as it is said, it was put in that way as sansara, that is the cycle of rebirth, right? So now, according to the Noble Eightfold Path, the first one is right view. First factor is right view. And Buddha says, if you don't have right view, then you can get a woeful birth, right? Because you don't have right view. Because everything, all the rest of the Noble Eightfold Path depends on that right view. So if you have right view, all the rest will come in, correctly. And it will be possible to have right understanding, right speech, right livelihood, right action, all the rest of it. So if you don't have right view, then all the other things also will be wrong. It cannot be right. So that is where the what the Buddha said was that. So therefore, if you don't believe in rebirth, now rebirth is also part of the Buddha's enlightenment, because now when he got enlightened, karma, the result of karma, the cyclic nature of sansara, that you get, that's the rebirth. All these things were, he came to know all these things at that time. That's why he gave these things to us. So believing in them or not, if you do good things, that is what I can say. If you do good things, still you can get a good rebirth, whether you believe in it or not. Right? So that is what Buddha said.
Rick is asking, what guidance does the Buddha offer to lay people who are older and facing the final stages of life?
Yes, now in the Hindu tradition, of course, you get the 4 stages. When you are young, when you are studying and all that, and then you get married and having a household life, and then last stage is where you go into homelessness. But in Buddhism, it's not like that. In Buddhism, that is why Buddha has ordained, now Buddha first ordained Rahula, his own son, at 7 years. He was only 7 years. So there is no such classification or, a way of dividing one's life into so many sections. But the Buddhists, in one particular, that is in the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, he was looking at 2 people who were going begging, and they had been the richest couple in that state, the richest couple, with so many crores, CRORES, crore, you say, I don't know the exact amount of wealth. They're so wealthy. They had spent all that unnecessarily, on banquets and giving people and, getting people and, that kind of thing, parties. In the end, they were begging on the street. Then Buddha turned to Venerable Ananda, who was with him, and said, Ananda, can you see those 2? They were the richest couple in this state. Now they are begging. Why? Because they spent their money, their wealth unnecessarily in partying and things like that, drinking, all that. So they just spent their money, and now they are like this. But those 2 had the potential to become anagami. Anagami is the 3rd stage of spirituality. That is, supposing they had come to the Dhamma when they were young, right? They would have attained Sotapanna. Supposing, they would have attained to that stage. But supposing they came to the Dhamma in their middle age, then they would have got, Sakadagami. Supposing they came into the Dhamma when they were old, much older than that, then they would have at least got stream entry. But now see them. They have vanquished, they have just, thrown away all their wealth into partying and or liquor and all these things. And now they have nothing and they have no Dhamma either. So that is why it is very important that there is no division as such according to like in the Hindu, in the Hindu religion, they have 4 stages. There is no nothing like that. But Buddha says, now in this case, he says about these 4 stages. And That is because they would have become so spiritual had they entered the Dhamma. But they didn't. So there is no difference. Only thing is, what Buddha says is, if a child can drive away crows, when something is put out to dry, crows and other animals come and eat it. So if there is a child who can drive them away, that at that stage, or when they are about that old, they can be ordained. So that means now, like Rahula, who was only 7 years, he was ordained. So therefore, there is no limitation in age to get ordained. Only when they are very, very small, of course, they won't be ordained. But that is it.
Thank you. Sud, the gentleman who was here earlier
Good question.
today, is asking also, if one is not Arya, but by practicing metta, can one make most of these Akusalakama be diluted, like that of the Ganges scenario?
That is not I didn't get it correctly. Can you repeat it again?
So, Sud is asking, if one is not noble, but by practicing metta, can one make most of the Akusalakama be diluted? Like
by bathing in the Ganges River?
No, like the salt in the Ganges. In comparison to the cup.
Right. Yes, definitely. Yes. There is no, in Buddhism, at that time it was not Buddhism in any way, it was just the Dhamma. The Buddha, all his life, while he was living for 45 years, he fought against this caste system. So, whatever the caste, it's not necessary to be Aryan. But the Buddha gave that word Aryan another meaning. That is, the Arahant who became an Arahant, ordinary people who became an Arahant, or a monastic who became an Arahant, the Buddha called is an Aryan. That's how Buddha always used the same words but gave a different meaning to it, spiritual meaning. Yeah, right? So, therefore, whatever the caste, whatever those things don't matter in Buddhism. If you practice the Dhamma, if you do wholesome deeds, skillful deeds, you can definitely. What did he ask? Whether he could?
If practicing good deeds and good mental states like metta, if practicing metta can dilute the
unwholesome. Now, supposing you must also be careful about that. The unwholesome deeds, if they are trivial, in the sense, not any of those. You remember I told you heinous crimes?
Yes.
There were 5 of them. So if someone has done any of those heinous crimes, definitely whatever wholesome deeds you may do, you cannot, erase them. Now, like King Ajatasattu killed his very noble father, Bimbisara. So, because he killed that father, otherwise he became a very good Buddhist later. Ajatasattu became a very good Buddhist and he did so much for the Sasana. But he went to hell because of that crime. It was such a heinous crime. So, if one has not done any of those crimes, any other crime can be, you don't call them crime or sin. And if you have done any other evil, they can be, of course, some may be, if they are very strong, it might create bad birth. But also remember, as I told you in the earlier, when I was answering another question, it's the last thought at the moment of death that carries this, carries you to the next birth. So if at the last minute, whatever the thought that comes, now for instance, King Kosala's wife, Mallika, was a very, very good woman. She had done umpteen, so many good things and given dana. She was generous. She was loyal to the Dhamma. She was so good. But last minute, when she was dying, she remembered a little bit, a little, how shall I say, bad karma that she had done, because if she had not thought of it, she would have gone to heaven. So when the king was very, very fond of this wife, and so he was so cut up, he came to the Buddha and asked, now where is she born? So the Buddha didn't answer that question till Mallika was born. It is said she was born in hell only for 7 days. I don't know how true these things are, but that is how the the story goes. So at the end of the 7 days, the Buddha said she's in heaven now. So actually she had gone to heaven after that because she had done so much. But the last minute, when she was about to die, she remembered that little act of hers that she had done. So that is how it happens. Have I answered the question, or have I?
Yeah, I
think so.
Okay.
Following question from Manal. Dear Venerable, would there be an element of sorrow in letting go when experiencing disenchantment? If you don't mind describing what the experience of disenchantment looks like, please.
Now, this is a question on meditation, right? So when we start meditating, now as it is, now we have gone a certain way in meditation. But when you really start meditation, you are just very raw to the Dhamma. So at that time, you cannot get this, what you mean by disenchantment. Disenchantment means, in a way, dispassion. And, now actually, lay people in lay life, shall I say, even when we were in lay life, everybody is enchanted by everything, right? What it means is that you are so attached to all the things that you see, the beautiful things. There are beautiful things. That's why Buddha said, people will not get so attached to all these things if they were not, pretty, not beautiful, not attractive. Huh? Because there is pleasure in them, that is why people are attached there. So now when you meditate, you start seeing the reality of things, that however pleasurable, however attractive, however good, beautiful things are. Now let us take a beautiful flower. If you look at it, you will see after 1 or 2 days, it has wilted and become discolored, and the petals falling away. It is the same with everything. Well, I mean, now some things, now even gold, something made out of gold, after some time it can get discolored and dusty, and the value of it may go down. So In the same way, now because we are attached to these things, we think that they bring us pleasure. But when you start meditating, and after some time of meditation, you go on meditating, daily you spend a little time meditating, then you increase the time of meditation, and so on and so forth, so that not after a week or so, but after many years, right, of meditation, you realize that after all these things are impermanent, right? All these things are not going to stay the same way. My children, my husband, my wife, the car that I have, the house, whatever it is, everything is impermanent. So if things are impermanent and I get attached to them, then what does it bring? It brings dukkha. It brings unhappiness, right? Suffering. So now you see two things, that is impermanence and the unsatisfactoriness. Then little by little you see, even within yourself, that there is nobody here, the no self part of it, right? These are the three things that Buddha was talking about, right? So then you realize, what is the use? That is the time when you get disenchanted with everything, right? First the disenchantment comes here, right? And then you get disenchanted with other things.
Thank you, Aya. I would just also say, in my own experience, with disenchantment, it's not sorrow, but more joy and relief, as you say. It's putting down that burden, putting down and seeing the reality of those things. There's not a sadness, it's a release, and there is a joy and a sense of much more freedom.
Relief, like.
Relief. Relief is, yes, a good way to describe it.
Yeah. Now I explained the disenchantment part. You explained the result of it. That's right. When you find that everything is like this, anicca, dukkha, anatta, when you see these three things in everything that you associate with, then a certain it is the reality that you are seeing now. So because you are seeing the reality, you get happy, you become joyful, and you think, now I understand. All this time I was enchanted by things that were like this, anicca, dukkha, anatta. But now I have got over it. Yeah.
Next question from Richard. Dear Aya, would you be able to share the most challenging and most insightful experience in your practice so far?
Most challenging and most, what is the other word?
Insightful.
Insightful. Now let me see. Yeah. Now before it's a very ordinary thing that I would be talking about, not really insightful, right? Because now there are three things: Sila, Samadhi, Panya. So the first part is the Sila part. So that is the part that we all practice first, Sila. Without the Sila, we cannot have Samadhi. We cannot have wisdom. So when we practice the Sila, Sila means morality, virtue. So when you practice Sila, you are just a raw person who has come into this life, into the monastic life. Someone just like all the other people, we also have come from the mud, right? Like the lotus that has come up from the mud, we also have come out of it. but we are still, having those qualities that we had while we were lay people. It takes time to, get rid of them. Maybe not entirely, but at least to a certain extent. Now, say anger, comparing yourself with others, envy, jealousy, conceit. I don't have to name all, but you know what kind of defilement we all have. So now, when we get into this, the robe, we give up so much, all our sort of household things that we have been acquiring and being attached to. All those things we give up and then take to the robe. Then we have only the robe and the bowl, right? Or maybe some books also. So by that time, the attachment to those things, the material things, become less. That's the first thing that I noticed in myself. Then you become, then after some time, you start thinking about the sensuous desires, whatever sensuous desires you may have had. Then you think of those things and see how useless they are. Then you come to the other things like, getting angry, getting, looking for, now even in the food, looking for taste and, wanting. So all these things become less and less as you, go on in this life, because that is what is expected of us. And when you, when that happens, then the samadhi is also easier because there is no burden. But still, thoughts are there, and it is difficult to get, the thoughts out. So it is then that we have to put forth effort, the fourfold effort, the fourfold effort. So then you have to put forth effort. And when you put forth effort, then you find that you may be able to get samadhi, right? And you realize for yourself that whether you have the right view. Now whether we read something or whether we listen to something, you can listen on the internet, you can listen to, or you listen to another preacher giving, some advice or sermon. You listen, and then when you listen, you try to see, is this what the Buddha taught? Right? So by then, you are able to see, and then as you go on in this, ordained life, you find that you can look back and see how changed you are from that raw lay person that has come into the fold, into the community, whether you have changed and how far you have changed, right? So those are some of the things, the insightful things that I can talk about, because I can't say I have attained stream entry or I have attained Sakadagami, or, I don't want to talk about those things. What I can tell you is that looking back, I can definitely say that I have, now I don't get angry. I don't know whether if I've come across something very, very terrible, that whether I will get angry, but I can suppress it. Not like those days when I would, retort. Now I will never do that. Now, things like that, that I see in myself how far I have gone, and I'm quite happy with it. I think that to see for yourself whether you have developed or not, cultivated, whether you have actually, after coming into this life, whether you have lived a pure life, whether your mind is pure, like Sabba Papa Sakaranang, Kusalasa Upasampada, Sachitta Pariyodapanang, Etang Buddhana Sasana. The meaning of it is Sabba Papa Sakarana, not to do any evil. And that is one of the things that all ordained people try to do, not to do any evil. Kusalasa Upasampada, to do good. Sachitta Pariyodapanang, which is the most important, to purify the mind. And this is the teaching of the Buddhas. So these are the three things that I can tell you that I have tried to do.
Thank you.
And I have to say, I can't imagine you. I can't even picture you angry. I can't.
I used to be very angry sometimes.
I can't imagine. It seems impossible to see.
Okay, we have a question from Rick. Venerable, rehabilitating highly abused Great Pyrenees continues to be an important part of my life and practice. How do we know when this type of compassionate service is healthy or when we are clinging too much to our animal friends? Thank you.
I couldn't get the whole, thing. Now, what does it mean?
He spends time rehabilitating animals, dogs.
Yeah.
And he's asking when this type of compassionate service is healthy or when we are clinging too much to our animal friends. He wants to know this balance.
So what he's asking is, by trying to rehabilitate these animals, am I getting too attached to them? Or is he already attached to them? Too attached?
He wants to know whether when this compassionate service to the animals is healthy or when it results in too much clinging, I suppose.
No, I don't think so. Because if he is doing it in the correct way, that is, now supposing that he has many animals, let us say. Now we have someone here who knows this very well. But anyway, I will answer. Now, if you have animals and you show different attitudes towards different animals, then it is not metta. It's not loving friendliness or loving kindness. Because to all the animals, small, ugly, actually there are no ugly animals or human beings. It is we who term them ugly or comparing and doing all kinds of things. But when you have all kinds of animals, you have to treat all of them equally in the same way. If he can do that, then he is showing loving kindness or loving friendliness, metta. If he is choosing them, this one I love it more, this one I don't love so much, then it is not metta.
Okay. Next question. Dear Venerable, I have a question about rule number 108 for bhikkhunis. What is a vest for a bhikkhuni?
What is that?
What is a vest? This person is asking about a Vinaya rule.
Yeah. What is the dress? Yes, DRESS.
VEST, vest. What is a vest?
What in the West
Yes,
for bhikkhuni?
for bhikkhuni. Yes.
What I'm wearing, this is called a sankachi. And we wear it to cover the whole body. Because actually, why do people wear clothes? It is to cover the body, especially the parts that are not shown to everybody, right? So now in our case, we wear in such a way that the body is not seen, like, because the body is can be misused, so that is why. And she or he said about 108 something.
Rule 108.
No, much more than that.
Yeah.
No, I think this particular rule in the Patimokkha is
She's
about,
referring to that rule.
I think so. Yes.
Right, okay. Yeah, so that is the reason why we because earlier, when they first ordained, they wore in the same way as the men, with one shoulder there.
Sure.
Then when they went on arms round, supposing there was a wind and the robe got a little disarrayed, people started laughing because there were young bhikkhunis whose body was beautiful. So they would say things, and then Buddha asked them to cover up. Buddha didn't say, sort of give any sort of direction as such, that they should be long like this or whatever. I think these have come later. It was only this part that was covered then.
Okay. We are getting some comments saying thank you for some of the responses. And also, next question. Venerable, how should we balance learning from direct experience, teachers, and the suttas? Thank you.
Yeah, one thing is learning, knowledge is important. You can't say that it is not important. Now, some teachers might say that only practice is good. Practice is necessary, definitely. But knowledge is also good, because when you practice, if you have knowledge, you will know where you are. You practice, right? You practice meditation. And then when you practice meditation, you will know how far you have reached in your spiritual journey. If you have no knowledge, you won't be able to find out. You'll have to ask this one and that one and tell your experience, and So therefore, both are equally important. But practice is, in a way, more important. Because without practice, if you have knowledge only, then you will be, a skeptic sometimes, who will be, always arguing and trying to, there are certain people like that, even in Buddhism. We have some people like that.
No, that's good.
No, we have some people like that.
Oh, yes.
So
Yeah.
they try to make others also who are the regular ones to turn to their side by giving, telling them and giving, this is what you should do, this is not what you should do. That kind of.
It's very true. As you said, the practice, it's really the practice. Taking all that knowledge from all those sources and how we learn best, but it's the practice where it becomes not
what
just,
they say,
just
the
book knowledge.
Sangha, the ordained Sangha is not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
If they were not necessary, Buddha wouldn't have had them.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And Sud is asking, Dear Aya, how is guilt different from and ottappa.
From guilt, different
Hiri and
from?
ottappa.
How is guilt different from hiri and ottappa?
From I didn't get the word.
Hiri, hiri, the Pali word.
Hiri. Yeah. Hiri and the other one is ottappa.
And ottappa.
Uh-huh.
And then following, was Queen Malika feeling hiri and ottappa at the time of death?
Queen Malika. Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if she was, shouldn't have these qualities protected her from hell and not result in hell for her?
Now, these are things that all supposition, isn't that? So we can't definitely say if this was so, this would have been. If this was so, this could have been. So let me first take the first part. That is about Hiriottappa and guilt.
Yes.
Right? Guilt and Hiriottappa are two different things. Hiriottappa. That is, Hiri means the shame that you feel to do wrong things. Right? Hiri. Ottappa is the fear that, after doing something wrong, you get some sort of fear, isn't that so, inside? So, Hiriottappa, Buddha says, are called world protecting Dhamma, right? So, that is because now when we know that what we are going to do is wrong, because if that person has this kind of hiri, he or she will not do it, right? Now, for instance, say there is a married couple, then there is another couple. Now, supposing one of this couple falls in love with one of the other, opposite sex, of course. Now that is not correct, right? So you will be breaking up that marriage, and also you will be committing what we call sexual misconduct. So all that. Now, if you have hiri and ottappa, you will not, however attracted you are to another's spouse, you will stay away from them rather than get involved. So therefore, now we have to talk about guilt. Now Hiriottappa, that is what I would say about Hiriottappa. If there is anything more to that, we can add later. Now, guilt is something like, say you have done something, otherwise you won't feel guilty, no? So when you have done something wrong, and sometimes you may do it without knowing that you have done wrong. But later on, after knowing that you have done this wrong thing, you feel bad about it, right? And you feel guilt. Now that is guilt. Also, some people, knowing that it is wrong, still do it, right? And then after some time, feel guilty about it, right? Because no one, even a bad person, who has done something wrong, after some time will always feel that you have done wrong. And that will sort of be like a thorn in your heart or mind, right? And it will create that kind of the word is guilt. Yeah. So therefore, Hiriottappa are quite different from guilt. Guilt is the feeling that you get after doing something wrong. Hiriottappa is the protecting quality that gives you the protection not to do that kind of thing. Right? Okay.
Would you say guilt is related to udacha kukucha, the sense to restlessness and remorse? Is this related to guilt?
Yeah. Restlessness is the result of guilt, and remorse is also something like that. But actually what Buddha says is, supposing you have done something wrong, and if you know that you have done wrong, it is useless feeling guilty about it, having remorse, having restlessness, worrying about it. It is something that has happened in the past. Supposing it is not one of those heinous crimes, then you can always make it wholesome, right? By taking off that, not thinking about it and worrying about it and becoming restless and worried and guilty, try to do good things. And then, like in the Vinaya, there is a certain rule where they, you might be knowing, where you cover that with, leaves, that spot. So like that, you can cover the unwholesome by the wholesome.
And this would be wholesome actions by body, wholesome actions by speech, and then wholesome mental states
Definitely.
like metta,
Yes.
compassion.
Because it's after you think that you do it. Yeah. Some people say, "Oh, I didn't think." It's not like that. You have, even a swift thought has come.
This seems to be the last question from online.
Okay.
8:27.
I know. So again, if anyone has any questions, please type it in. And I think if people have more questions, again, please feel free to ask them. I do have one question. I was thinking maybe can you talk about the importance of intention and its role with karma? If you could talk about that. It was one of the questions I had earlier from your previous sutta discussion today, how intention is so important in karma. How the act might be the same, but the intention is different. If you can speak to that.
I thought you were going to speak about
No, I was going to ask you. That was my question. I'm asking you to speak about
definitely. Because even when, now supposing, leave aside any action. Now say, now we are seated here, right? We're all seated. So we think of standing. The intention must come to stand. Then only that you can stand, right? It is just like that. So now when I raise my hand like this, there is the intention to raise my hand. When you stretch your hand, when I stretch my hand to take the cup, the intention is there. So without the intention, no action can take place. So even when we are seated, the way we sit, the way we keep our body straight, all those things mean intention plus, or intention with the intention, the action. So without the intention, nothing can be done. That quite true.
Thank you. Another question.
Yes. We have another question. Dear Venerable, butter is an allowable for monastics after noontime. Is peanut butter considered butter?
Again, please.
Yes, this question is. I think the question is peanut butter allowable? That's really, is peanut butter allowable? Is one of the allowables?
I don't think so. I
will say I've never seen it at any monastery. It's a good question because it's. I've never seen it, and
You mean
Which is
peanut
too
butter?
bad because I like peanut butter.
But the thing is this, peanut butter will be needed. You can't just take peanut butter. You know, peanut butter by itself you can't take just like that. But you have to spread it out on a slice of bread or something like that. So that is not allowed. We don't eat anything. We only take certain juices, not every juice also. Certain juices only we take. So
Right, you can't have the pulp and things. I would say it's a good question. Thank you for asking that question. It's a good question also to ask Bhante Siddhasa, who is very versed in the allowables and what is allowable. I will also say it's very complex, allowables, what is allowable, and you even see some different interpretations at different monasteries what's allowable. But I would tend to say peanut butter is.
But I have never seen peanut butter being taken after 12.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, never seen. Not only peanut butter, other butter kinds of butter also. Now there is margarine, which is not made of milk.
Right.
Even that is not taken.
Okay.
And I think that might, unless someone has any more questions, I might be the last question. But before we go, do you want to let everybody know about your vihara in South Carolina and just give some information about where you're at now in case anyone's nearby you that can come to your...
Okay. Now, I am a resident bhikkhuni at Carolina Buddhist Vihara, South Carolina Buddhist Vihara. It is in Greenville. And if any of you go that way, you're welcome to visit our monastery. And we are now, at the moment, we are hoping to get, we had a sort of not a very well-built stupa, but there was a stupa there, and it was crumbling. So now we are trying to make proper stupa, and there is some good news about it. That is that it has been shipped. It's made in Sri Lanka and sent here. So that it has been shipped. We don't know when it will reach Greenville, but we are hoping to have that too. So anyway, if any of you go that way, you're welcome. And also before, now this may be the last discussion that we will have, I think, on Zoom.
And I think a couple more questions popped up as well before, as we're talking.
Yeah, so therefore, I would like to give a blessing to everyone who has, participated before I leave.
We still have a couple more questions that came in.
There are?
Yes.
People
Yeah,
typed in
okay,
some more
yes.
questions. We'll have a
ready to
blessing
answer.
before we end. Definitely, if you could give a blessing
yeah.
before we end, that'd be wonderful.
Okay. Sud is asking, Dear Aya, can a Patujana make one's mind immeasurable in metta while not being able to achieve the 4 stages of realization?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. And one more question. Dear Venerable, is depression a symptom of one's ego?
Depression. The word ego is, I don't really know exactly whether ego means sort of thinking of oneself as being very high and mighty and great. If that is so, then depression cannot be part of ego, or it cannot be because of ego. But if ego means just a kind of, it means just a person, like it's a person, then it can be that. But I don't think depression can come because of not. The question is not whether depression can come because of ego, but is depression ego? Isn't that so?
If the experience of depression is a symptom of one's
Symptom of ego. Yeah.
maybe
But it is difficult to say, because depression is something that because you think you are inferior, because you think that you are not up to standard. That is why that depression comes. So therefore, it's a little difficult to say that.
ego can also mean a sense of self. So
If it's just the sense of self, then it can be yes. But if it is like thinking of yourself as someone so big and great, then it is not so.
Yeah. The definition of ego is, I would say, it's one of those words that there's a lot of different definitions, but also it's important to remember that sometimes people just have chemical imbalances. I mean, that's just what it is sometimes. And depression occurs in some people. It's not a weakness or things like that. And sometimes people it's a chemical imbalance that somebody has, and sometimes people need to take medication for it.
And this is the last question.
Okay, then we'll give a blessing.
Can I make just a couple announcements before?
Yeah.
So if anybody is in the area on Saturdays, there's a meditation program, a Dhamma talk meditation program at 6 o'clock, 6 to 7:30 in the evening. And then Sundays 1 to 4 is also a meditation program, Dhamma talk and meditation. Please feel free to come by the monastery also on Sundays. If people want to volunteer, I also like to say Kama Yoga, I think is, and if people want to volunteer and come early, they can come early on Sunday at 8. And then also we have been very fortunate to have Ayasadina here. Next week, Bhante Sumita will be here. For those who have seen him or not seen him, he's a monastic who currently lives in California, and he'll be here doing the live streams, but also the meditation programs in person. Thank you all for a lot of wonderful questions, and we appreciate your appreciation tonight. And I know, Aya, you want to give a blessing for everyone?
Okay, I'll give, we'll all join in the blessing. Sabbe buddha balapatta paccikananca yang balang arahantananca tejena rakkang bandam sabbaso ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevaca ato nibbana sampatti minate samicchatu bhavatu sabba mangalang rakkantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sabba dhammanubhavena sabba sanghanubhavena sada sotti bhavantu te. May all of you be well, happy and peaceful.
Thank you. Do you have that question from anything?
No, just a lot of people saying thank you.
Okay. Lots of thanks. Thank you all, and everyone have a wonderful evening, day, morning, weekend. We appreciate it, and see you all soon.